Okay. Am I audible? Is my voice clear? Okay. So I think we were discussing about the mains question in the last class. We had three questions which we discussed and we completed it. Then we went into the economic survey and we were looking at the table to read about the data on GDP. If you recall back, we had seen the numbers on GDP's growth rate. We also saw something called as GVA, which explanation we haven't completed it. I have told you, like after the inflation class, I'll teach you about the GVA, right? So the percentages of the growth rate is what we saw from the table, and we also saw that there was data on the savings and on the investment. So it was mentioned as gross savings, and investment was mentioned as a gross fixed capital formation. So gross capital formation. So that was what the words were there. In that thing, there is one more smaller explanation about that gross capital formation. I'll finish that thing right now. Then we will pick up today's class, which is going to be upon the growth and development. As I said in the last class, we are going to study lots of indicators which are going to talk about how far India's economic growth has happened and India's development has happened, and we are going to contextualize this in the international comparison also. We are going to see lots of indicators which are comparing the countries across the world, and we are going to see where is India positioned in this. So first we will learn the concept on economic growth and economic development. Then we are going to see the position of our country in various indicators. And towards the end of the class, we are going to learn a concept which is called as Lorenz curve and Gini index. So that's going to help you for measuring the concept of income inequality. So that will be the agenda for today's class. Even before we get into this economic growth and development as a topic, and the white screen. I hope you are all able to see the white screen, whiteboard. We are able to see the whiteboard. Okay, so I think if you do this, I wouldn't be able to write anything. So people, please don't try anything on the screen.
More option. More the disabled participant. Structure. Clear.
The pencil. Stop sharp to sharp. ಇಲ್ಲ ಒಂದಿಷ್ಟು pencil. Okay. So what we are going to write now is about the gross capital formation. This is equivalent to the investment what we discussed in the circular. We were saying like the banks will be giving the investment expenditure to the business sector, so that business sector will absorb it, and again the circular flow will be happening. Basically it's about the loans, or it is about like creating the capital again. So this is going to be having three components to it. One is gross fixed capital formation. What is there in gross fixed capital formation? One is construction of newer buildings, newer storage places, newer processing places, all those things. Another one is purchasing machineries and equipment. So if you buy a new machinery or an equipment, or if you construct a new place, all of these things will be considered as gross fixed capital formation. This is the first thing under gross capital formation. The second thing is change in inventory. The third thing is bullion investment. So what is this change in the inventory or the stock? Assume that I have this pen, which is not a very big machinery or an equipment to run this class, but it is an essential equipment or an essential capital which I will be requiring to run the classes. So it's not as big as an investment like the projector or anything, but there are certain things like the CDs, the pen drives, the pens, the hard disk. There are several things which we purchase and then keep it in our store so that we'll be able to run the classes. Assume that last year I had stored only like 5 pens and this year I'm storing like 10 pens, which is 5 more pens. Then the necessity of storing this more, the stock comes because I'm going to run more classes. So here is where we understand that the little bit of an investment is actually increasing in the terms of change in the inventory. It's not a very big machinery or an equipment to be placed under gross fixed capital formation, but it is a change in the inventory or the stock, expecting that the business will expand. So I'm going to increase a bit more of the capital so that I can run the business in a better way. So that is also taken as a gross capital formation. And third thing is the bullion investment. Bullion means if we are going to buy some rare metals like or investing in rare metals like in platinum, or you're buying the gold and then keeping it in the form of an investment. So these are all the things which will be the third thing. So when you talk about the investment, why are we talking all these categories? This is how economic survey is going to portray about the gross capital formation, right? So what you read in the theory what you have learned is circular flow of income. Tomorrow, when you look at the circular flow and when you are opening up the economic survey to look at the data, you should be able to match these two things and then understand. If you are seeing some word called as gross capital formation in the newspaper, you should be able to understand that the country is actually talking about the levels of investment, right? So there should be a theory which becomes practical and you need to understand. In terms of savings, there is no confusion because the theory as well as the news both are going to make use of the same word, savings. But in terms of your investment, they won't write it as investment. Sometimes in economic survey, I'm going to show you the economic survey volume 2 tables. They will be even titled gross capital formation. They won't even be titled say investment in agriculture, investment in industries, investment in service sector. Like that, they won't write. They will rather write it as what is the gross capital formation in agriculture? What is the meaning of this? How much of construction has happened in agriculture? Whether they have constructed anything as processing facility or storage facility, or how much of tractors and tillers and other things have they bought, which is also a machinery and equipment buying in agriculture. So all of these things are actually going to become into the gross capital formation in agriculture. Similarly, you can talk across the 3 different sectors. So the discussion is going to go with the heading gross capital formation. In that situation, you should be able to visualize this word GCF as equivalent to investment, right? So if you look at this thing, I'll tell you one more understanding data. Assume that the country has done gross capital formation of 100 rupees. I'm giving you an example. In that case, 90 rupees will usually come in the form of gross fixed capital formation. Somewhere around like 7 rupees will come around the change in the inventory and the stock, and 3 rupees will come from the bullion or investment, bullion investment, right? So the domination comes from the GFCF. So in short, we can say GCF is made of GFCF and change in the inventory and the bullion investment. So this GCF and GFCF, you have to be very clear. GCF is dominated 90% by GFCF. So these terminologies are essential for you to read economic survey or the news on investment in newspaper. These are all the economic terminologies which will be required for you to learn about the investment. What is this chat? Change in inventory or stock means smaller equipments will be there for lots of businesses. It is not again like a bigger machinery which you have to buy, right? So I gave you an example for our education sector, buying this kind of a stylus pen or buying a hard disk or buying a CD or buying a pen drive. All of these things are kept in stock for us to run the classes for the next few months. But if we are increasing the stock, say for example, last year I had 5 pen drives with me, but this year I am keeping like around 10 pen drives in my store. There is a change in the inventory from 5 pen drives to 10 pen drives. So that change in the inventory will be taken as an additional capital formation in a particular year. Everything is referred to again the financial year. Bullion means whatever like the rare precious metals. You will be commonly investing in gold, that is fine. But other than the gold, you can also go in investment with platinum and the rare things like, right? So in those cases, if you are investing in gold or in platinum, just for the sake of investment, if you are keeping your money in that particular form, then that will be reported under bullion investment. This is in terms of the machineries and equipments uh, which are not as big for us to report under the GFCF, but smaller things which are essential to run the particular business. Right? No. This is not investment minus circular flow. This is the investment which was shown in the circular flow. I think there is a problem in the representation. I didn't mean that it is minus circular flow. I was trying to say what we wrote in the investment word in circular flow is what is here represented as the gross capital formation. I think the rest of the doubts we will again take it up in the end. Households buying gold is not a gross capital formation. It won't be gross capital because it will be for the consumption. Usually when you just buy the gold in the form of the gold bar or biscuit or the paper gold, those are all the things which will be taken as the investment. You should not be making use of it as a jewelry. Rather, it should be just kept aside as in the form of investment, like the gold biscuit and other things. Those are all the things which will be considered as the bullion investment. Bullion investment is basically to keep the money in the form of a rare metal form or a precious metal form, if you want to mention. Right? So this is one thing which I wanted to mention as part of the last class. So with this, most of the concepts which is relevant or to the present condition, we have finished it. So now we will go to today's topic, which will be upon the economic growth and development. Next page, 54.
Yeah, last question.
Right. So, so we are going to start on today's topic, economic growth and development. So first, let us write some basic differences between these two words. Then we will go into the indicators. So whatever we have studied so far in the first chapter, like what have we studied? We have studied about national income. We know I'm going to write all the keywords what we have studied in the first class. We know what is national income by now. We know what is savings. We know what is investment, what we wanted to call as exports, imports, taxes, the government's expenditure, right? All of these things are talking about how much economic activity has happened in the country and how much have we earned. So basically, when you talk about growth rate, that's what we saw in the table also in the last class, in that particular table on the GDP. So we always talk about GDP, right? We have talked about ICAR, we have talked about green GDP, right? Maybe we can shift green GDP later into developmental perspective. But as of now, till up to here, when you're talking about all of these things, we are actually talking about the income earned, the money part. So we are going to say how much India is capable of earning and how much has it saved, how much has it invested, how much has it exported, how much has it imported. All of these things are going to come in numbers, right? GDP is the major variable which you have learned. And now you all have to get used to one word called as denominator. What do you mean by denominator? In mathematics, whichever is coming below that line is going to be called as denominator. So we are going to say that GDP is going to become a denominator for most of these variables, and the representation will come like this. How is it going to come? Savings as a percentage of GDP, investment as a percentage of GDP, right? Taxes as percentage of GDP, exports as percentage of GDP. Like this, they are going to give you numbers. So most of these variables will be given as a percentage of GDP. Fine. What is that we are learning out of all of these numbers? We are learning about the economic activity. We are learning about the income earning capability of the country. Fine, I have earned income. I now know that India is growing at like 4%, 5%. Post COVID, of course, we can reduce the number to 1% or even half percentage. We just have to wait and see how the numbers are turning out, right? So, but anyways, what we are trying to say is India has earned income, and what is its growth rate, the income's growth rate. These are all the stories which are belonging to the area of economic growth. How do you earn money? How fastly is your money growing? What is your earning capability? All of these things are belonging to this side, which is called as the economic growth. Now we move on to the right hand side, which is economic development. What is economic development? So now we are going to answer this saying this development is going to encompass growth, but it is something more than growth. What is this more than growth? Say, for example, there is a household which is earning like around 15,000 rupees. Now I am going to ask a question. If you want to answer, you can answer it through the chat. Assume that this family is now being given with like 40,000 rupees. I said initially the salary of the household was 15,000 rupees. Now they are doubling the salary or giving more than it, 30,000, 40,000, right? So the moment this 15,000 becoming 30,000 is something like the economic growth. You have now earned the money, right? Your income has actually increased. It has increased by 100%. Now you tell me, if I give you like doubling the amount of your salary, what is that you want to do with that money? You can start answering. I look at your answers. What is that you want to do with the money? Everybody wants to save, right? No, no, no. Be bit more specific. Like if you are saying, say, you want to invest in gold, extra is a new property. Can you buy property in 15,000 rupees? Please be realistic, okay? Can't buy gold and all for 15,000 today. The rate is very high. Long term electronics, deposit bank, everybody wants to save. I think COVID has given you a lot of lessons, so you people don't want to buy anything. Somebody is buying a mobile phone, health, education, some reasonable answer in between. I saw investments in mutual funds, very good. Okay, consume plus play plus spend. What is the difference between consume and spend? Somebody has to tell me. Deposit in the bank, large consumption takes place. Exactly, right? So okay, wait, let's get back to the point. The point is, you're all summarizing the answer as somebody is wanting to save, somebody is wanting to invest, and somebody wants to buy gold, somebody wants to buy luxury goods, fulfilling our needs. Finally, somebody is answering fulfilling our needs, right? Fulfilling our needs. First, 15,000 earning salary family, if it becomes into 30,000, or 35,000, you should be realistic, right? You shouldn't jump into the fixed deposit and mutual funds and luxury goods and all. Be realistic, right? Four people at a home. Stock market, okay. Or elite urban people, so please come down to reality. Pay back loans, very good. That's a very essential thing. Now the banks are all chasing people. Agreed completely. But basically, I'm saying any household which is being given a bit more amount of the resources will actually want to fulfill its needs in a better way. Then you can start consuming the luxury goods. You can start thinking about the stock markets, mutual funds, and other things, right? For any household, there are certain basic needs. Three things. What are the three things? One is nutrition. Second thing is, yes, food, of course, nutrition. Then health, health, and third thing is education. Exactly. So you're all realizing all the food, shelter, and clothing it's all the basics, like subsistence level. So that 15,000, I think it will be sufficient to meet out this shelter or the housing, the food, the basic food. I'm saying the subsistence levels, food, and then clothing. That is all. But beyond that 15,000, if you are giving them money, a slightly a better way of living. How do we portray it? You need to have good nutrition. I'm not calling it as food. I want to call it as nutrition. Right? Then we are going to talk about education. Then we are going to talk about the health. So these are the aspects which a household will start concentrating, because if I have more money, I will try to get some fruits and vegetables for the children, and I'll try to give them a better level of education, a better way of learning things. And I will also try to take care of them whenever they fall sick, just not going over the counter to the pharmacy. Rather, maybe I'll be taking them to a hospital. If there is a problem, if there is a health issue, I will be attending to it immediately. I won't postpone my decision because I don't have money. Right? So these are all the things first we satisfy. Then we can start talking about like the luxury goods, the tourism, all those things later. So this is the household level. So the same thing only we are going to escalate for the country also, right? If I am country India, I was earning 1,000 rupees. Now I am earning 1,500 rupees or 1,300 rupees. What is that I am going to do with this money? I have to make my country better off. The earning part is what is called as the economic growth. How am I going to spend the money and make my country better off is what is going to be discussed as the economic development. So development is a larger concept which is going to say that yes, it's a welfare, right? So you have to encompass the growth. What do you mean by encompass the growth? First, there should be some amount of income. But is this income alone is enough to call that the country is developed? No. Why is it no? Because whatever you have earned, you should know how to spend it effectively. How to spend effectively? You should be spending upon the nutrition of the people, health of the people, education of the people, social development, and you have to give them social protection, social security measures, and then make the people with a better welfare measures. So it's a development is a larger concept. You reduce the poverty in the country, you reduce the unemployment in the country, you give them the skills in the country, you reduce the hunger in the country. These are all the things what we expect the country to do with the amount what we have earned in the form of the economic growth, right? So now we are going to go and see whether India has actually done all these things. What all these things? Reducing poverty, reducing hunger, improving nutrition, increasing education literacy rate, improving the health. There are two major millennium development goals which has now become into social development goals, sustainable development goals. Do you know these two keywords? MMR, IMR, right? Do we know these words? MMR, maternal mortality ratio. IMR, infant mortality ratio, right? So these are all the major health indicators which we have to attend to. I'll tell you the definition of everything. Please wait. Right? So we have said about education, about the health, about the nutrition, poverty, hunger, reduction of unemployment, reduction of pollution, improving social infrastructure, giving us safe drinking water. Many of the indicators like this are there available for us to talk about the concept of economic development. So it is to basically say, how are you making use of the income which has been earned by the country in order to take it in the path of the development, right? So this is what we are going to see right now. This is the money or the income earned. This is the concept of how have you spent that income in order to make the country better. So let us go now and see a list of indicators which are going to be discussed to see the level of development where India stands. And the first and the foremost indicator what we are going to learn today is UNDP's HDR, which will be giving you index called as HDI. Along with this HDI, there are four more indicators which the human development report is going to give you. The second one is called as inequality adjusted HDI. Third thing is gender development index. Then you have gender inequality index. You have multi-dimensional poverty. Do you all have the economics book which we had shared to you in the beginning of the class? The Academy's book. Do you have the book? Yes. So I'm going to pick up a page from that economics book, the soft copy, and then I'm going to share the screen right now. All the 5 things what I have written on the board right now from the Human Development Index, inequality adjusted, GDI, GII, MPI, all of these things are present in that particular book. I'll show you the indicators, then we will start the discussion about each and every one. இன்னைக்கு இது எழுதணும்னா எப்படி எழுதுறது? ஓகே, காமிச்சிட்டு திரும்பி வரதுக்கு வழி மட்டும் சொல்லிடு. சரி, ஓகே. இது ஸ்கிரீன்ஷாட். இது இப்போ ஓபன் பண்ணாலே உங்களுக்கு தெரியுமா? தெரியும். What's the page number of this? You all can look at this page number 16. This is the graphical presentation of all the indicators what we are going to study from the Human Development Report. Human Development Report is a report which is published by UNDP, United Nations Development Program. Every year we will be getting the report. As soon as we get the report, everybody will want to I hope you are all able to see it. I tell about each and every indicator, all the dimensions and everything. I'm just telling you an introduction. Then we are going to pick up every indicator. We are going to write on the board. So give me some time. The first thing is we are talking about the report right now. Who is publishing this report? UNDP is publishing. What is the name of the report? HDR. And how many indicators are there? There are 5 indicators, which all of them we have listed in this particular page. the very popular indicator out of this is the Human Development Index, which is the first indicator. When you hear the news about the Human Development Index, you are actually going to look at one particular thing. Where does India stand? What is the rank of India? Right? Now I'm going to ask you a question. Like you can type the answer. How many countries are there in the world? I hope your geography map reading class is going on. Want to answer? You can answer. Let me look at your answers. 196, 192, 193, 195, 198. 210. Okay. 189, 259. Okay. Somebody broke up. 224. What is the name of the report? Name of the report is Human Development Report. 194 or 193. Okay. So let us now freeze the number. Don't get into as per UN and all. Actually, UN is like the UNDP's report right now. What we are going to talk. They will be usually making a denominator of 193 or 194, right? But that's not the total number of countries what is there. There could be also more number of countries which you people have to tell me from geography. For us, for economics, I'm going to tell you that 95 to 99% of the countries in the world, they are being covered by the UNDP's Human Development Report. Why it's not the economic survey, it is our own economics book which we had shared from the academy side for the economics learning. It's our academy's book. If you don't have this book, after this class is over, I will ask the administration department to post it again to you. As of now, let us get into the concept. So first thing is the denominator. Again, I'm telling you about the word denominator. The denominator is the total number of countries which are being studied, which could be 196 or 195. First, that is what you have to see. Then, out of those many number of countries, where does India stand? Whether it is 132 rank or 129 rank or 128 rank is what we have to see. After the discussion of this particular graphical presentation, I'm going to show you the UNDP's HDR report, the latest 2019 report. You are going to see where does India actually stand and how do we actually see the values of these things what we are learning. It's not denomination, it is denominator. Denominator means in maths you will be writing, assume that you are getting some marks in your examination. They will say out of 100 I scored 60. So that 100 is denominator, whichever is there in the below part is what is there. This is not only for India. What we are discussing through the Human Development Report, we are discussing for all the countries in the world. That's why I said the denominator is the total number of countries. So what we are going to say is, we are going to pick up some indicators. Then we are going to ask this question to all the countries in the world. Then we are going to put some value and then say, India, you are here in the levels of human development. So what are these things which we are going to study through the Human Development Index, right? I hope you are able to see two keywords here. One is called as the dimension, another one is called as the indicator. I want to still enlarge, I have enlarged. I hope now the thing is clear. So the first thing what we want to call is health dimension. In the health dimension, we are taking the indicator called as the life expectancy at birth. I think I'll write everything on the screen, then I'll come back here for sharing this. Is the whiteboard visible to you? Yes, okay. So now what we are writing is about the HDA. What is that we are writing? There are three dimensions to HDA. One is the health, which is life expectancy at birth. Number two is education, where you are going to say expected years of schooling. And mean years of schooling. And then you're going to talk about the standard of living, which is GNI per capita. PPP terms. We'll go one by one. What do you mean by life expectancy at birth? Life expectancy at birth. What do we mean by this word? If I am an Indian, for how many years will I live? Is what is called as life expectancy at birth. On an average, how many years will an Indian live? Will an Japanese live? Will a US person live? So like that, they are going to ask this question across the country and they are going to quote a number for the life expectancy at birth in years. Right? What do you think it's a number for India? Life expectancy at birth? 56 is very less, 71 is very ambitious. 66, 68, 69, around 60, 60 to 80. My God. Okay. We are somewhere around 68. Okay. That's the average life expectancy at birth. And when we go to gender development index, we'll discuss more. Yeah. So that's the data for India. And which country do you think that is having a highest life expectancy at birth? You want to give some example countries which will be having Japan, Denmark, China, Iceland, USA. I've not got the answer yet. Don't Google Finland. Scandinavian, no. Norway, no. No. Korea, no. I still not got the answer. USA, you're all very fan of USA, it seems. Many Switzerland, Scandinavian, Cuba, Sweden, Canada, no. No Holland. Australia, Netherlands. You're going to be surprised. I'll show you the data when we get into the table. Actually, it is Hong Kong, right? Don't start saying that we already mentioned it as China. I wanted like, yeah, Hong Kong is the answer, right? So we are going to see the data as such from the Human Development Report. As of now, we are saying on an average, an Indian will live like around for 68 years, and which we call as the life expectancy at birth. Then we are now moving on to the education, where we want to see the Human Development Index in terms of two types of variables. One is like, assume that I'm a 5-year-old, like looking at a 5-year-old child, and then I'm asking a question to the child in a country saying how many years of schooling can this child expect. So we, of course, our recent education policy, they have changed 3 plus 4 plus all those things that are there. But still we can say like 10 plus 2 system is what we are actually following. At least like 12 years of formal schooling we are planning. Now maybe from now onwards we will have to revise it and say like 14 years of formal schooling or 15 years of formal schooling. But so far whatever has been reported in the report is like 12 years of expected years of schooling in case of India. Similarly, they'll go and survey different countries and they will say that how many years of schooling every country will be giving to a 5-year-old child. 5-year-old child, right? So then when we look at the second variable, which is mean years of schooling, now we again go and ask a person who has reached an age of 21 and above, how many mean years of schooling did you have? Do you think the answer is going to be different between these two variables? One is the expected years of schooling and mean years of schooling. What do you think? Is it going to be the same? They are also going to answer that, yes, I had 12 years of schooling. It will be different. Why is it going to be different? Why is it going to be different? Do you think like all the 100 children, say for example, I'm telling you, all the 100 children who are enrolled at the school level, will they all reach the 12th standard? They won't. Why they won't? There will be dropouts. Exactly. Right? So you have started answering. I'm actually feeling happy to see all the answers. So this is the concept why we have two different questions here. One is expected years of schooling, which is 12 years. But mean years of schooling will be lesser than that, obviously, because there will be dropouts in the country. So if India is having 12 years of expected years of schooling, how many years of schooling actually the children had is what we are going to represent here. And these two things will be called together as knowledge index. So we have one, life expectancy at birth, number 2, knowledge index. Then slowly we are moving to the third variable, which is the standard of living. and we are going to talk it in terms of per capita income. There are lots of discussions about the indicators, which I'll tell you as we finish the indicators, the rest of them. But as of now, we are just learning the indicator. There are 3 dimensions to the Human Development Index. One is the health, second one is the education, third one is the standard of living. In case of health, education, we have seen the indicators. In case of your standard of living, we want to see the per capita income. I hope you all remember the per capita income formula, what I taught you in the first session. That will be national income by population, right? And when we were teaching that, we also said that if you don't put NNP at factor cost, you all remember NNP at factor cost as the national income, technically called as the national income. So if you are going to put any other variable other than this NNP at factor cost, you have to call it with the name. I told you, you have to call it as GDP per capita, GNP per capita, like that. Similarly, now they have given this GNI per capita, which means that they would have taken GNP as a numerator and divided it with the population. Right? So that's why the name is coming as GNI per capita. Right? I hope you also saw the number on the per capita income, which was something like around 1,35,000, if you remember. Right? But 1,35,000 is in terms of rupees, or Indian rupees. Now what we are doing is, for 195 countries, 196 countries, we are looking at all of these variables and then we are trying to compare it with each other. Can we go and compare our rupees with other countries? Is rupees considered as an international currency? GNP and GNI are both the same. I am referring to it here as GNP, GNI, both as the same. Now we have asked you a question. Can we compare in our Indian rupees with the rest of the country? We can't, because India's currency is not an international currency. So we have to obviously pick up the dollars. Right? Now I'll basket of goods and all later. That question comes later. I'm not getting into it right now. I'm just going to ask you a very simple question. I give you like 1,000 rupees in your hand, and then I'm going to ask you to convert this 1,000 rupees into dollars, because we have to compare our national income in terms of dollars, the per capita income in terms of dollars with the rest of the country. All the countries, 195 countries, we are going to put everybody's per capita income in terms of dollars. So for us, I give you an amount called as 1,000 rupees. So what will you do? You have to divide it by the exchange rate. So the exchange rate officially, if you look at from the newspaper, if you pick up, you will be finding out some data like 69 rupees, 70 rupees, 74 rupees, whatever. Right? Today's exchange rate. This is what we usually will do. But here we are going to mention a word. Do you see from the screen that I have mentioned something called as PPP terms, which is called as purchasing power parity terms. This is another type of an exchange rate. What is this exchange rate? I am not getting into it right now. We are going to learn this when we are going to talk about the external sector. When we talk about the external sector, again, I'll come back to this second session. I'll make you recall this part and then connect. But as of now, what I'm telling is, if I give you 1,000 rupees and if you're ready to divide it with 70 rupees or 74 rupees, similarly, there is yet another exchange rate which will help you to convert this 1,000 rupees into dollars, which is going to be called as purchasing power parity exchange rate. Right? The concept of it we are reserving. As of now, you just consider it as a mechanism to convert the rupees into dollars. That's it. But we are going to make use of this dollar terms only across all the countries, and then we are going to compare the countries. I hope we are clear up to here. We have studied about 3 dimensions of Human Development Index, and we have studied like the indicators under the dimensions. GNI and GNP are the same, what I want to tell you in the class. That's why I have given the GNP in the numerator and divided it with population to find out the GNI per capita. And we have also converted this rupees into dollar terms by making use of the purchasing power parity term. Right? So now we are going to summarize the Human Development Index. We are not getting into purchasing power parity. That will be later, right? Yes, I just mean to say that GNI per capita and PPP is in dollar terms. That's all. This is money represented in terms of dollars. Our per capita income represented in dollars. If you want to talk in a very simpler term, that's how we can define this. How did we convert only? I have told you that it will be at the PPP terms, which we are not going into the details as of now. I don't have the base to discuss about the exchange rate with you today. Why in GNP and not NNP? Obviously, they don't want to remove that depreciation value. That's why, right? Expected years of schooling is 12 years, right? That's right. I will be showing you the data, then you will be knowing what I am talking, right? Human development report, I'm going to show you all the data once our discussion on the concepts are over. Now let us summarize what is there in this human development index. How am I going to summarize? All the three things should come into one place. I'll add the page. Don't have place. Human development index, health, education, standard of living. Earlier they used to do average. What do you mean by average? Sigma x by m. They used to add health, education, standard of living and divide it by 3. This is not being followed now. What is being followed? They are doing something called as geometric mean. How do you calculate geometric mean? Nth square root of x1 into x2, etc. up to xn. What is the meaning of this? I have 3 variables. So cube root of what? Cube root of health into education into standard of living. This is how we calculate. Now you are going to ask me a question. Why did we shift from average to geometric mean? Right? Geometric mean is much more sensitive to changes in the values of health, education and standard of living. How is it much more sensitive? What do you mean by sensitive? Right? I'll tell you one small example. If there is a lower value and it improves a bit, what is the meaning of that? Assume a country is having health, education, standard of living value written there. Health value is very less. Okay. Now the country is improving a slightly better in its health term. What is the health term? Like life expectancy at birth. Assume some country had only like around 40 years of expected life expectancy at birth. Maybe it improved to 45 or 46 or 43 or 44. And the lower value is improving a bit, like increasing, it is in the increasing trend. Geometric mean is going to give more weightage to such a number rather than 95 becoming 97. If 40 is becoming 43 or 45, that will be considered as more increase than 95 becoming 97. That's how this geometric mean is going to be sensitive to the increase in the smaller value. That's why they have chosen geometric mean, because improvement of the less values is much more important. You can assume that this is a classroom. An average student is there who is just getting 40 marks all the time. A brilliant student is there who is always getting 95 marks. It won't be a surprise for us if the brilliant student 95 marks scoring person is becoming into 98 or 99. But you'll be very happy if the average student who is getting 40 marks is scoring 40, 45 is reaching to 50. So the undue weightage of giving more weightage to the smaller values becoming bigger is what this geometric mean is capable of doing, which is why they have chosen geometric mean as the methodology to calculate the HDA. So we have done this geometric mean calculation. Assume like we have 196 countries in our hand. We have done the geometric mean calculation and you get a value between 0 to 1. Please note this in your mind. You are getting a value of 0 to 1. Right? Now I have 196 countries in my hand. I've got all the countries taking a value somewhere between 0 0.02, 0 0.03, 0 0.04, like that. Every country is taking a value. Now what I have to do? I have to arrange all these countries in ascending order, or say descending order. We'll put the ascending order. Values for all these 196 countries, which have got between 0 to 1, ascending order. Then we are going to call the countries into 4 names by dividing them equally into 4 groups. What are the 4 names? Low developed countries or less developed countries. Second category is moderately developed countries. Third category is highly developed countries. Fourth category is very highly developed countries. So we have got 4 categories of the countries right now. Less developed countries or low developed countries, moderately developed countries, highly developed countries, very highly developed countries. 4 categories of countries. How did we do this? We arranged all the countries in ascending order and we cut them into 4 equal groups. Right? Earlier they used to do one thing. What they used to do is all these less developed countries, okay, all these less developed countries, they will say like anybody is having value less than 0.5, they'll call them as less developed countries. 0.5 to 0.8 they used to call moderately developed countries. 0.8 to 0.9 they used to call high developed countries. 0.9 to 1 they used to call very highly developed countries when they were making use of the average. Now this is not being followed. What is being followed? I have data from 1 to 196 country, the value of 0.01, 0.02, 0.03 like that, going on up to becoming 1. I have arranged all the numbers in ascending order, and then I'm going to cut them into 4 equal groups. When I cut them into 4 equal groups, I call them as quartile distribution. Or should I write it here? I should call them as quartile distribution. Quartile is making into 25%, 50%, 75%, and 100%. Right? So that is the total calculation of HDI. What do you need to know about HDI is 5 things. What is that you need to know about HDI? About HDI, you need to know the dimensions. Number 2 is indicators. Number 3 is the formula, which is the geometric mean. Number 4 is the value which the HDI takes, which is 0 to 1. Number 5 is the categories into which the countries are divided into low, moderate, high, and very high. And how do you do this? The categorization comes from quartile. If you are clear on all these 5 points, I want to add some more insights into it. If you are clear up to here. After getting a quartile distribution, say for example, if you are having 196 country, put it into 200 countries for economics number convenience, say. Put 200, which means that you have to now divide it into 4 groups. I'll tell you, I am talking about quartile distribution now. Please give me a minute for me to complete this discussion. Once I am done, again I will pick up your questions. Assume that there are 200 countries in the world. I'm saying it for mathematics convenience. Quartile distribution means now I have to divide it like into 4 equal groups. So I will divide them into 50, 100, 150, 200. Somebody is asking repeatedly about the expected years of schooling, mean years of schooling. Please wait. Let me finish this. I'll get back to the question. Please wait. So what we are talking is about the quartile distribution. So 220 is divided by 4. You will be assuming that every category. What is every category? Low developed countries 50. That is first 1 to 50. 51 to 100 will become moderately developed. 101 to 150 will become highly developed. 151 to 200 will become very highly developed. This is how we will perceive the concept. This is not how we have to do this. Rather, instead of cutting the number of countries, you have to go and cut the values. What is the meaning of this? I hope you are all very familiar with the Excel sheet in the computer. I hope you're all familiar with the Excel sheet in the computer. What I'm asking you to do is write 1 to 200 countries in one column. Name all the countries. In the second column, write all of their values. 0.01 to the 1. So that's what I have done here. One is the countries, another one is the value. Now what I'm asking you to do is, you have to take this value, the answer, the HDA, whatever we have computed, and cut them into 4 equal groups, right? If you say 200 divided by 4, you make it into 1 to 50. If you go according to the number of countries, I'll tell you there is a difficulty. What is the difficulty? Assume that 50th country and 51st country are both getting the same HDA value. If you cut it by number of countries, I told you low developed countries is 1 to 50, 51 to 100 is moderately developed country. Now my question is, 50th country and 51st country, they are both having the same HDA value. Will you place this 51st country into low developed category, or will you place this 50th country into moderately developed category? What will you do? Let me see your answer. Do you understand what I'm asking you? 50th country, 51st country, both having the same value. Will you place the 50th country into moderately developed, or will you make 51st country into low developed? There is a problem here, right? You can't do this way, that way. Actually, you will have to pull it down towards a low developed country. That's the right thing. But it won't be accepted. This is why they said that don't divide the countries, the 200 countries, into 50, 100, 150 and 200. Don't do them. You will give them both as 50th position, but you have to categorize them, no, whether it is low developed or moderate developed. You will be obviously putting into low developed, because a low developed country has already reached that value. We cannot go now shift it into moderately developed. So you're going to pull down the 51st country into the low developed. So now comes the problem. Therefore, don't divide the number of countries. Don't do 200 divided by 4. You go and take the value, which is a HDA value, add it up, and you divide that by 4 and go and put that value as the cutoff value to cut it into the 4 different categories. Which means the value will become unique. You're going to tell that any country which is having a value less than 0.45, they all become low developed countries. Not the mean value. It is not the mean value. It is, of course, it is mean value, but that's a way how you can do this division into the 4 groups. See, you have to add up all the HDA value and divide it by 4. Say, for example, there is a way how you calculate it. But what we are trying to say that is, you have to divide the value into the, you have to add the value and you have to see the quartile. That's why it's called as quartile distribution. What is the 25th percentile or the 25th value in the value and 50th value in the distribution, right? So you have to do it as 1/4 and then half and then 3/4 and then make the rest of it into the highly developed, the very highly developed category. So we should not repeat. See, if you do, see, what we are trying to say is, if you have a total, you can know what is the 25th. Say, for example, if I give you a number 75, okay, and then I ask you to find out the 25th percentage of the 75, you will still have an answer, right? You understood my question? I'm giving you a number 90. And I'm asking you to find out the 25th percentage of the 90. Can you answer me or not? Yes. I give you a number called as 150 and I ask you for 25th percentage of 150. Can you answer me? You can, right? That is what I'm asking you to do. You add up the total value of the HDI and you take the 25th percentage of the total value of the HDI. I hope I made sense, right? So that's what we are saying. So don't go into the division of the countries, because when you divide the countries, 2 countries having the same value will become a problem. So what I'm asking you to do is take the total of the HDI value, go into the 25th percentage, 50th percentage, 75th percentage of the HDI value. Don't go to the total number of countries. See, I told you 200 number of countries. So 200 is a total value. To the 200, you applied the 25 percentage, which is what is the 50, which is why you went and got all the 50 countries into the low developed, right? So if the total of the HDA value is some number, say for example, it is 90 or 100 or 150 or 200, whatever it is, you go and pick up that value and put the 25th percentage of that particular number, it becomes a low developed. So what you will be having is, you will have a value and you're going to say that all the countries which are having less than this value will become low developed. All the countries which are between this value and this value will become moderately developed. All the countries. So you're going to define the range based upon the value of the HDI, not based upon the number of countries. I don't know if I made sense to all of you. Right? So please try to understand this mathematics. This is a major change which they have done in Human Development Report. And this is what is being followed. You have to remember this. You have to remember this method as quartile distribution. That's very, very important. This word, what we have written on the board, quartile distribution, dividing a number into 25%, 50%, 75%, and 100% is what is the quartile distribution. And the variable for category is the same in this method. Yeah, it is a 0 to 1 value, right? 0 to 1 value will be arrived at by making use of the geometric mean formula. See, for India, they'll get a value 0.67. For Japan, they'll get a value 0.87. For some other like African country, Sudan, they may be getting a value 0.31. All these values, how did we get? We got it through geometric mean. And what did we do after getting these things? We arranged everybody in ascending order. After arranging all the things in ascending order, what did we do? We added up the HDA value and we made it into 25%, 50%, 75%, and the rest of it. So that is what has made it into less developed countries, moderately developed countries, highly developed countries, very highly developed. Yes, that's right. Numerical example means I have to get into the Excel sheet. Maybe I'll put an Excel sheet, some numerical value I'll add. I'm going to show you the actual HDR report. By this you will understand. Yes, every country's HDI will be made it into it will be pushed into a particular quartile by dividing the index value into 4 equal groups. You just have to remember this method as 4 equal groups. Not much of maths is required. Just understand the concept of whatever we are trying to tell you, right? Calculation will not be asked in the preliminary examination. You need to know to write it in the mains examination, because several years they have talked about how do you make improvement in the human development, or if they are going to ask, right now we are in a COVID situation, right? I'll give you a question, you think about it, right? Is a human development index is really truly representing the human development right now in the whole world? Now that you have learned HDI, I'm going to give you more discussions on HDI towards the end of the class. I'm going to ask you a simple question. You think about it, right? Once this class is over, you can know HDI. Okay, you don't get into the mathematics of it. Just now, assume the numbers, whatever I have told you, a total, divided it into percentage. That's all, right? We are not going beyond that. Yes, they are following quartile distribution of the values. I will show you the report. I'm just throwing you a question. You think about it. You can even get back to me in the next class. Is the human development index truly representing the levels of human development across the countries in the world after saying the COVID situation? If it is not really putting up what is human development, then why do we have this indicator? You just think about it. Now you know what is human development indicator. It comprises of education, it comprises of health, and it comprises of the standard of living, right? What happened to the health now? Life expectancy at birth due to COVID, there are so many people who are dying. The numbers are all going to be pulled down. So you can think about it and then you can reflect it. Why did you strike the values in the screen, ma'am? Because this is a method which was followed earlier. Earlier method. present method. This is the present method. Quartile distribution is the present method. This was the earlier method. And this is the present method. Right? So that's what in the next screen I have totally summarized what are all the things which you should be knowing about human development. What are the 3 dimensions: health, education, standard of living. What are the indicators under it? Life expectancy at birth, knowledge index, GNI per capita, PPP terms. What is the formula? You have to talk about the geometric mean, the values between 0 to 1. How do we categorize? Making use of the quartile distribution, you have to divide it into 4 different categories, right? So that's about the HDI. Now we will go into the book what we were actually discussing. So this is what we have learned as the first indicator, the dimensions, the indicators, and about the human development index. We'll come back to more discussions again later. What is this? People are going on typing. Ma'am, not visible screen is please wait. I'll share the screen. Is it now visible? Is the screen visible? Yes. Okay. So that's your first thing, which is about the human development index. Now the second thing what we are going to learn is about the inequality adjusted human development index. So what are we going to do? The same 3 dimensions are taken here. You can see that health, education, standard of living, how we took for the HDI. And that's why the name is inequality adjusted HDI. But now let us ask ourselves a question. Life expectancy at birth is there for India. We already said there is some number like around 68 and other things. And based upon the human development index, I'm going to declare that India belongs to moderately developed category. We are in the second category. Now the question is whether all the parts of the country, can we call it as moderately developed? Can we answer to this question? Can you say that all the parts of the country is equally moderately developed? In the meaning, all of them having equal levels of education, health, the standard of living. Are we thinking like that? No, obviously no. So then we have like some better developed states like South India, Maharashtra, and all. There are some very like less developed states within India like Bihar, the Bimaru states, and other things. So what we are trying to say is, though we called the country as moderately developed country, the development is not uniformly developed across the different regions of the country. Everybody agrees to this. So the question is about inequality in this developmental indicator. I want to say that India is having this particular life expectancy at birth, but can I say that across all the states the same life expectancy at birth is expected? I can't say. So there is an inequality. I am going to adjust this value for inequality across all the 3 indicators. How do we make the adjustment? There is a way technically they do it. I just name you the method how they do it. I'm not going to go into the details. That is not required for the examination. But we are going to make use of an indicator which will be correcting it for inequality. That's called as Atkinson's measure. I'll write it here. இந்த ஸ்கிரீன்ல எழுத முடியாதா? இதுல பிடிஎஃப்ல எழுத முடியாது.
Analytic. Analytic. Doing analytic.
There is a measure called as Atkinson's measure. This is what is used to adjust the life expectancy for the inequality. What is the inequality? We have higher life expectancy at birth in some parts of the country, lower life expectancy in other parts, higher levels of knowledge in some parts, lower levels of knowledge in other parts, similarly for the income level. So let me tell you an example. Say India has got 0.67 as a value in the Human Development Index, HDI value, and we got categorized ourselves as moderately developed. Now, after the adjustments, using the Atkinson's measure, because my levels of inequality across the states in the country is more, maybe I lost the value to 0.55. Why this reduction of value from points? I'm just giving you an example. We are going to see the real numbers in the report. I'm giving you an example. 0.67 became into 0.55 because I lost my marks. Why did I lose my marks? Because all the people in my classroom, they are not having the same marks. Some is having more, some is having less. So I have adjusted for the inequality. So the total marks after the inequality adjustment has fallen. Then what they will do? Again, they'll put this number and then arrange all the countries in the ascending order and then cut them into groups. In which case, you can also move from moderately developed country into a low developed country because you have lots of inequality in you. I'm not saying this will happen, but this can happen. This can happen. It has happened for many countries. Many countries have improved their ranks. Many countries have lost their ranks. Mainly because of this concept of inequality adjustment. So if you are making a level of development in your country, you have to ensure that it is uniformly developed across all the regions. If you can't ensure that, you have to lose your marks. Right? So that is what is the inequality adjusted. It's not Atkinson method is being done for everything. You can see, can you see that inequality adjusted index, inequality adjusted life expectancy index, education index, income index. So every indicator in the calculation will be adjusted for the inequality. And again, it will be summarized into inequality adjusted HDI. And then you again arrange all the countries according to the newer value what you have got as the inequality adjusted IHDI. And then you rank the countries. Sometimes the countries will lose their ranks. Sometimes the countries will improve their ranks. You cannot apply it directly for HDA because you are taking it as only as a geometric mean. It is like at the cross-country level. When you are looking at this, you're going to go and adjust for the values of differences within your country. So this Atkinson measure hails from the differences within your country. The technical part of explaining how are we adjusting is not required. It is given as a technical appendix in the Human Development Report. If you want, you can go and look at it. That is not required for our examination purpose. All we need to know for the preliminary examination is inequalities are getting adjusted by using of the Atkinson's measure, and the resultant will be called as inequality adjusted HDI, and countries are capable of losing their ranks based upon the extent of the inequality within their country. This is what is important for our examination. Right? So that's the second indicator, which is the inequality adjusted HDI. In annotated விட்டு எப்படி பவளியில வரும் திரும்ப அதே போய் கிளிக் பண்ண வந்துருமா annotation எப்படி எடுக்கிறது
annotation press பண்ணிட்டு clear ஆன டாக்ஸ் கிளிக் பண்ணுங்க உள்ள கிளிக் பண்ணுங்க கிளிக்ல இருக்கு delete delete ஆப்ஷன்
எதுப்பா
clear ஆன டாக்ஸ்.
Now we are moving on to the third indicator, which is called as the Gender Development Index. in case of the gender development index, again we are going back to the same HDI. We are looking at it, and now we start looking at it in terms of gender, right? What is the problem here? Okay, this is the gender development index. You have the same three things of what you studied on the HDI. What did we study on HDI is health, education, and standard of living. The same three things you are seeing here, which is repeated again, but the heading is female and male, right? So they are going to study for women in your country, how is the level of your health, education, and standard of living. For men, how is it in your country, right? So this comparison, we are going to take, assume according to the Human Development Index, they have already put India into the moderately developed category. Now they come to India, and they are going to look at India, men, women, and then ask them these questions, these three questions on education, health, and standard of living, right? So just for our information, we need to look at the health part, education part, and standard of living part. What do you think about this life expectancy at birth? Who will be having more, the female or the male? Can answer? There is no difference of opinion. I can see all people answering the same thing, right? So somebody is suddenly writing male and they were not very sure, right? So female is going to have more health, or rather this life expectancy at birth. I'll come to education slowly. First we'll finish the health side. So life expectancy at birth, men getting stressed because of female. Obviously we agree to it, but female also getting stressed because of men, and we don't indulge in the bad practices at least. So anyways, women are having more life expectancy at birth. It is of course 70 years for women in India, and 68 is an odd for men in India. This is not only for India. Across the world, if you take any country, women will live more because they are much more peaceful. They don't have bad habits, quote unquote. So better health practices, better eating practices, and therefore women actually live more than the men, right? The rest of the two indicators, if you want to talk about education and standard of living, obviously like uh, men will be doing better than women. Women are catching up with the education level, but overall if you look at in India, we still have not reached to that extent where we can say throughout the country we can say that the education of uh, women is more than men. So we have a long way to go. There could be differences in states, of course, but overall still women are trailing behind men in both these indicators, which is called as the education and standard of living, or the learning capital, earning capability, right? So with these differences, they are going to again write the values, again compute a human development index for female and human development index for male, and combine these two things and then put it up as the gender development index. So it's very simple, GDI. We just make the HDI for men and women and combine it and present it as the GDI. But there is a problem in this calculation, or rather the representation. I'll tell you the problem. See if you can like assume things and then follow. I'm not able to see you all, so I'm just trying to quote you some examples so that I convey what I want to convey. Assume I'm sitting here in a building which is having 4 floors, right? Give me some time before you ask standard of living, education, and all the things. Women are lesser than men, right? Screen is not scroll down. Okay, I have not scrolled down the screen. This is what is the gender development index, the area what I am showing to you. We have calculated human development index for men and women separately, and whatever the method what you followed in the human development index only we are um, following in the gender development index also. I'm not getting into the geometric mean calculation problem. There is a conceptual problem in this. After finishing this, I'll give you a break. I can understand like somebody's wanting a break, they have message, it's fine. I asked you to assume that I'm sitting in a building where there are 4 floors, right? Assume there are 4 classrooms. Assume each classroom is a country. Done? Or should I write? I'm writing classroom 1, classroom 2, classroom 3, classroom 4, right? And I am placing India in classroom 2. I'm just trying to say that this is a low developed, moderately developed, high developed, and very highly developed. Let me finish the example, then you can ask your doubts. Right? When you have these 4 categories, you have fixed India into the second category, which is moderately developed, the second classroom. Our category is moderately developed. After fixing India into moderately developed, now you are coming and seeing whether India's men are doing better or women are doing better. Right? Though you call the country as totally moderately developed, now you are coming and saying Indian men versus Indian women. This is becoming like something an analysis within the country. It is not becoming an international comparison. I hope you're all able to understand what I'm saying. You can pick up this high developed country. You will do men and women of the high developed country. You will do the men and women of the very highly developed. You will do the men and women of the low developed. What actually is happening here is whether the gender development is happening overall, we are not able to make an international comparison. Rather, we are making it within the country comparison. Within India, within Australia, within Japan, how men and women are performing. So this is seen as a hurdle in terms of the international comparisons. What we should have actually seen is how men of or women of India, women of Australia, women of like, we want to actually see the gender development, the women's development as such as a whole. But we are putting it now inside a country. I already fixed India for moderately developed. Then I am going and seeing what my men and women are doing inside my country in terms of the development. So this is like containing the study of development within a country. So only they thought like because of this limitation of studying only within the country, they wanted another indicator which will be called as gender inequality index, which is what is the next indicator which we are going to study. Did we all understand the limitation of GDI? GDI is study of a country and inside the country. You fix the level of development for a particular country and then you try to study about it, about the men and women inside the country. You will not be able to compare Indian women with Australian women or Japanese women or US women. It is like a comparison between men and women within a country. That's all. So we want to remove this limitation. We want to compare women across the world, men across the world. Overall, when compared to the world men, how the women have improved. This is what we want to present. We don't want to just present how within India the men and women are getting represented. So to overcome this limitation, we are moving towards the fourth indicator, which is called as the gender inequality index. If people want a break, I can give you for 5 minutes. Shall we have a 5-minute break and then continue? No, madam. Okay, I am willing to teach. If you want to have a break, I can give you for 5 minutes. Else, we finish all the five indicators, then I can give you. No, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Say something finally. Okay, so we take 5 minutes break. I will show you the human development report also today. All the data, whatever I am telling you right now, definitely I will show you all the five indicators. Then we slowly go ahead. I hope I'm not going fast today. I think we are going in the right pace. If I'm faster, please tell me. I will slow down. Uh, Let us like complete the concepts one by one and then move on. Right. So it's 12:04 in my computer. We come back at 12:09 and we see the data also concepts. We will finish learning, then we go to the data, we see them, then we go ahead with the rest of the indicator, right? So 5 minutes from now, we'll again resume. Right, so we are continuing with whatever we were studying. We finished gender development index. We were saying the limitation of it. So now we are moving towards the gender inequality index. The word itself is mentioning something as inequality. It sounds like there is gender inequality, so they want to raise the issue. Generally, when you mention something called as gender development, though gender is a neutral word, you can mention both about the men and the women. Usually, it gives a perspective to everybody that we are actually talking about women's development, right? So here, more weightage is actually going to be given in terms of the indicators towards women-related developmental things, which is why you are going to see health, empowerment, and labor market. These are the three dimensions, but there will be more concentration for women. How is it happening? We will tell right now. When you look at the health related thing, you are mentioning life expectancy at birth as a major indicator so far to represent the betterment in the health. But right now, when you are seeing, there are two indicators under the health. One is called as a maternal mortality ratio. Another one is the adolescent birth rate, right, or the fertility rate. So when you see this, both these indicators are actually specific to women. So there is only female reproductive health index, whereas when you look at the empowerment and in the labor market, you can see female uh, empowerment index as well as there will be a male empowerment index. If you look at the labor market, there will be a female labor market, there will be a male labor market index. But this is not happening in case of the reproductive health because we are giving exclusive importance to women's development in terms of their health. So how is this happening? First, let us look at this word maternal mortality ratio. What is this maternal mortality ratio? Right? So we're going to say like you're hearing the word maternal. Mortality is of course the death rate. But what is this maternal mortality is how many number of women in the process of the reproduction, or in the sense like the day the woman gets pregnant till 42 days after the delivery. So which we are going to call with the three terminologies. One is called as antenatal, the second is called as natal, third one is called as postnatal. Natal is baby, right? So if I have to write this, antenatal, at natal, natal is at the time of delivery. Postnatal is 42 days after delivery. So in this period, at any point of time, the woman is going to die in the process of reproduction. That will be counted as maternal mortality. And this is represented as per 1 lakh live births. Right? Maternal mortality ratio, MMR, is always represented per 1 lakh. All other mortality ratios, whatever you're going to hear from now, like infant mortality, child mortality, neonatal mortality, all those things will come later as per 1000 live births. Only maternal mortality ratio will come as per 1 lakh live births. Right? So you are going to say that any woman in this process of reproduction from the antenatal, from the day she gets pregnant till 42 days after the delivery, if she dies, that will be declared as maternal mortality. Right? So this is expected to be kept less than 100 per 1 lakh live birth. That is the target. That's the goal. Right? If you see in India, this data, what is your prediction? If we have to have like somewhere around less than 100, two states are there which have achieved this. One is Kerala, another one almost closer is Tamil Nadu. The rest of the country is actually struggling to bring down the numbers. Northeast states are having even sometimes worse number. And India is having somewhere, it was having somewhere data around 250 around. Northeast India was even having somewhere closer to 400. Now India is having somewhere around 174. That is the maternal mortality ratio. Right? The meaning of this is 174 women are dying per 1 lakh live birth. This is just not to be seen as an individual number or a ratio number for India. You can just say like 174 out of 1 lakh, but imagine the number of live births happening in India, then you will realize like India is having the largest number of maternal deaths in the world, because we are the second populous country in the world. And to the number of China is having lesser MMR. So we being having higher population and a higher MMR than when compared to China, we are actually becoming the country who will be having the largest number of maternal deaths in the total number, in the absolute number. So even though if India is growing economically by 5%, 6%, you still can't call India as a better developed country, because we are trailing down in these kinds of indicators like the health indicators. The major health indicator which is worrying India till today is this maternal mortality ratio. This is why India is taking all its efforts to improve a concept which is called as institutional delivery. Have you heard about this word? Right? So there were features in India where women stayed at home and they gave birth to children at home itself with the help of dye, or even a presence of dye is better. But even that kind of a delivery at home, it's seen as riskier for both the mother and the children. So institutional delivery is the major thing which India is promoting right now through Janani Suraksha Yojana and varieties of other programs in order to improve the this particular indicator, which is called as the maternal mortality ratio. And we have to come down to less than 100. Tamil Nadu and Kerala are the two states which are capable of like reaching this particular ratio. The second thing is about the adolescent birth rate. Can somebody tell me who's an adolescent? Any age group you want to mention? Adolescent? Let me look at your answers. Adolescent age group? Anybody? Teenage? 13 to 19, 13 to 18, after teen, 14 plus 15 to 24. What is that? 24 and are becoming adolescent. I never knew. 13 to 19 is the right age. According to UN, it picks up 13 to 19 as the adolescent age group. Right? And you combine that word with the birth rate, right? So adolescent giving birth. That's what is called as adolescent birth rate. If an adolescent, or rather if a girl who is belonging to the age of 13 to 19, if she is giving birth, what will be the implications, the results of it? Either the mother will die or the child will die, right? Or they both will be in a very poor health. So this is taken as a bad situation for girls or the adolescents who are in the age group of 13 to 19, which is why we always say like the minimum marriage age should become like around 21 or so, right? So that this birth rate, this birth should not be affecting the women and ending up in MMR. So adolescent birth rate is seeming to be a major health issue. This is not only for India. UNDP is measuring this across the world. And you're going to see this adolescent birth rate as a surprising number for several of the developed countries also, when I'm going to show you the data from the Human Development Report, right? So these are the two indicators which are taken for health. One is the MMR, which we have to bring down. Second one is the adolescent birth rate, which should also be brought down so that the basic essential health can be ensured for the women. And then when you look at the empowerment, they are looking at whether women are having at least a secondary level education when compared with men, whether they are able to at least like get secondary level of education, and whether they are having enough representation in the parliament. Though India says like around 33% of the seats should be reserved for women, hardly 10 to 12% of the women are catching up with the parliamentary shares seats over there. So that percentage is also lesser, in which case also India is not performing very well in terms of the empowerment. And when you come to the labor market, now we are going to compare, like if we take 100 people who are in this labor force, how many men are employed and how many women are employed. Obviously, women's participation rate is also lesser. Particularly, women's participation in the urban areas are seeming to be very, very lesser when compared to the rural area. In the rural area, at least we can say that the women can go for some field work and still can save the time in the labor force. So that scope is also not there for women in the urban areas. Though women are educated, women may not end up in the labor force, or they may not be participating in the work if you are looking at the urban regions. So these are all the issues I'm discussing. Most of the issues were pertaining to India. Similarly, these issues will be there across the different countries in the world. Then they are going to say that how women and men are performing in terms of the health, empowerment and labor market across the different countries, and then summarize it in the form of female gender index and then the male gender index, and then bring it into the gender inequality index. See, I'll tell you one thing, whenever they are computing these indicators, they'll be writing the value as female divided by male. This they would have done for the GDI also, right? I said like female development index, human development index. You can see here, female human development index by male human development index. This is what they would have done. So in this case, if there is a value lesser than 1, it's going to be that the country is doing well with men. If the value is more than 1, the women are doing better than the men. If the value is equivalent to 1, both men and women are doing well. So this is for the gender development index. Similarly, we have a gender inequality index, right? So here you are going to see that how the value is that the more the gender inequality index, you're going to see that the inequality is actually increasing, right? So I'll show you the data. So that's about your gender inequality index. The last indicator out of this 5 things is the multidimensional poverty index. I'll show you the number. Don't get into that less than 1, more than 1, all those things. I'll show you the number, then you will understand. So just give me a minute. Let's finish the multidimensional poverty index. Then we will get into the calculation part. Basically, it is female by male. So numerically, you can understand that if the denominator is big, the value will become less than 1. If a numerator is big, the value will become more than 1. And if they both are equivalent, then the value becomes equivalent to 1. If you divide 5 by 5, the value becomes 1. If it is 5 by 7, the value becomes less than 1. If it is 7 by 5, the value becomes more than 1. So now you can assume that you are putting women in the numerator, dividing by the men in the denominator. So you can assume the value. I'll tell you about the numbers. So what to write in economic terms? Basically, gender development index, it will be showing like which are all the countries in which women are doing better than men. The countries, usually we will expect that the men will be doing better than women. But there are certain examples which you are going to see from the report that women will be doing better than men. Gender inequality index is only to say that you are comparing the women specific indicators, particularly the health related indicator between the different countries, and empowerment and the labor market in which both men and women will get represented across all the different countries. And if you look at the female gender index, actually this gender inequality index is a negative indicator. What do you mean by the word negative indicator? We are actually talking about the inequality. So it is also constructed based upon the negative indicators. What is the meaning of it? I'm not talking about a good health and expecting it to be bigger, but I'm talking about a bad health indicator and I want it to be lesser. So the construction of the indicator will be different from those things what you have seen so far. In human development index, in gender development index, and all those things, you wanted the numbers to become bigger. But in case of your gender inequality index, actually you will want the number to become lesser if you want to give a better rank to the country. So the construction will be basically to understand that the lesser maternal mortality ratio, better ranking to your country. Like that, they will be constructing it in an opposite way. So let us not get into the details of it. All we want to know for the examination is what are the 3 dimensions, what are the different indicators, and then they bring in the female and the male index. and then they are going to combine this into the gender inequality index, right? For the men, it is only two positive things. One is if they have more empowerment. Number two, if they have the more labor force participation. For women, in these two aspects, it will be lesser. But if you have the third thing, which is called as a health. In this case, in the health, they are not expected to have the value more, rather the value should be lesser. So there's a different way of combining all these indicators and then arriving at the gender inequality index. All I want to tell you is only to understand that the gender inequality should be lesser, right? In the sense like the value should be lesser if you want to have a higher rank. So that much if you understand out of this indicator, that is sufficient for our examination. So now we come to the last indicator, which is called as a multi-dimensional poverty index. So now I want to ask all of you to tell me your understanding about the poverty. Generally, if I want to call somebody as poor in India, whom can you call a person, or how can you call a person as poorer person? How do you think you can define a person as poorer? Any answers you want to give? Calorie intake, basic needs, income, basic needs, 3 times food in a day, dollar level, no education, no health, no proper nutrition, under poverty line. Okay. So all of these things are going to be combined now. I want to like tell you primarily how Indian government looks at estimating the poverty. Of course, you need to have the minimum subsistence, 3 meals a day, and other things. What they are going to tell you is, they'll tell you a number. If you earn like 28 rupees per day in rural and 32 rupees per day in urban, that's the income level. Exactly. You're going to define a particular income and you're going to say, if a person is earning less than this particular amount of income, I wouldn't be having money even to buy the basic essential called as a food, or I wouldn't be able to meet out the shelter, the clothing, the minimum thing. Calorie intake is not a very popular way of calculating nutritional requirement, of course, is there, but that's not a very popular way how India is calculated. What India says is it puts up a level of income. It says like you must be having this much minimum level of income. If you are lesser than this income, then you are poor. That's all it is. It is describing. So it's a financial standard. It's going to be called as the income way of measuring the poverty. Now, when you come back to UNDP, what is that income? That income is what is actually called as a poverty line. How do you estimate poverty line? We will discuss in another class. All I am trying to tell you is Indian government has a method of calculating how much minimum amount every person should be having as an income in a day. That was brought by Tendulkar committee. There are several other reports which have come after that, but generally we say that in a day, in a month, you must be having this much amount of income. If you have this much of amount of income only, you will be able to eat properly. You will be able to run the basic essentials for a family in a month. So they are going to define the income level. This is how India looks at the concept of poverty. Whereas when you come back to this UNDP's discussion of multi-dimensional poverty index, you hear to the word multi-dimensional. It is not only upon the income. Actually speaking, there is no word called as income inside this multi-dimensional poverty index. Then how was this UNDP calculating this concept of poverty? What is the new method which it is following? It is going to say that if you don't have access to resources, so we are going to define it as what? If you are going to say lack of access to resources, that is what is going to be called as poverty. What resources we are not able to access? We are not able to access education. We are not able to access health. We are not able to have a decent standard of living. Then we are poor, right? When you are talking about education, health, and standard of living, it seems to be the same three dimensions as we discussed in our first indicator, which is called as a human development index. But now we are picking up the same dimensions. All the indicators are different. This is what we have to observe here. You can see the indicators. What you can look at it is nutrition and child mortality. Right now, I'm going to tell you a simpler way of understanding this. Assume that you are having a questionnaire in your hand. You are entering into a household. You're going to ask them certain set of questions. If they are going to say that yes, I have access to these resources, you're going to say you are non-poor. If they say that I don't have nutrition, I don't have education, I don't have health access, when they answer for these questions in these particular indicators, you're going to call that house as poor. Right? So let us see what questions you have to ask that particular household. The first question is upon the nutrition. Here is where you can bring in the calories level. What is the calories level? You can say like you must be consuming a minimum level of like these many number of 2100 kilocalories, or you can mention a particular minimum amount. If they seem to be consuming that amount of minimum amount of calories, then you consider them as non-poor. If they are consuming lesser calories, you have to call them as poorer household. That's the first thing. The second thing is child mortality. Who is a child? Now you can answer. What age group you think is a child? For economics? I'm not asking you a polity question. Below 12, below 5, till 5 years, under 14 years, 0 to 5 years, 7 years, 5 to 15 years, 1 to 15 years, 0 to 10 years. All varieties of answers. So we, for economics, always consider 0 to 5 years, no, 1 to 5 years. Up to 1 year, we call the children as infant. Generally, we say up to 5 years, we call the age group as a child. So, if the household has encountered child mortality, we are going to take that as a problem of health, because this particular age group only will be falling sick very easily if they don't have enough nutrition, right? So nutrition, lack of nutrition will be represented in child mortality. Combining these two things, we are going to see whether a household is poor or not. So we are going to ask about the child mortality in every household. If they have lost a child because of the situation, what is the situation? The poverty situation. That's how we are identifying the household to be poorer, because they don't have even enough nutrition to feed the children and then bring them properly up, or they are not having enough resources to take them to the healthcare facilities. Any of these reasons, they have lost a child less than 5 years old, we are going to call it as the child mortality. Child mortality will be looking at the number of children less than age 5 who have died per 1000 lives. We had called MMR as per 1 lakh live births, whereas in case of child mortality, infant mortality, everything will be per 1000 live births. So that's two indicators. You have asked about health in a particular household. Now then you ask them, did your children enroll in the school? That's the first question. Right? Did your children enroll in the school? Then they have to say, yes, we did enroll them. Then you are going to ask them, how many years of schooling did they have? When you are asking these years of schooling, then itself you will come to know whether the child is actually continuing its school education or has it become into a dropout. So if the children are there but they are not enrolled, that is also taken as an indicator of poverty. If children have been enrolled but they have come out as a dropout, that is also taken as an indicator of poverty. So that's how we get the answer for these questions. And third indicator, when you move on to the standard of living, you have different way of measuring the standard of living. You are not going to measure by saying per capita income and all. Income doesn't come into the picture at all in terms of UNDP's calculation. So what I'm going to do is I get into the household, I just look at certain things. What is the thing? I get into the kitchen, I ask them like, what is the cooking fuel which you are using? Then this fellow should be answering as a fuel which will not emit smoke, right? Gas cylinder is the only thing which won't be emitting smoke. If you're talking about kerosene, if you're talking about the firewood, if you are talking about the dung cake, any of these things will be emitting smoke, in which case it is a bad fuel. In which case you have to identify the household as a poorer household. The second question is about the toilet or the sanitation facilities. Do you have the facility or you don't have the facility? So that decides about the poverty. The third thing is about the water. In case of water, you have to ask them about the good source of drinking water. What do you mean by good source? What do you mean by good source? Right? There are two ways how you can identify the good source. Either it should be chlorinated or it should be boiled. Right? The water should be clean. So which means like you can have tap water as one of the answers for the good source of drinking water. If they are saying they are taking well water, underground water through the bore, or they are buying water, in all these cases we are not sure whether it has been chlorinated or it has been kept clean. So these are all well water, groundwater, these are all not to be reported as a good source of drinking water. Only the tap water is taken as a good source of drinking water. So the access to the water facility will also be taken as an indicator for defining somebody as poorer or not. Then about the floor. Have you ever heard about the words called as kacha house, pakka house, semi-pakka house, all those things? They're all the materials with which we build the houses. It can be mud, it can be cement, it can be asbestos sheet, right? So depending upon the material with which the household is constructed, that will also be resulting in the assessment of the standard of living. Then you can look at the last word, which is called as the assets. In case of the assets, you can be talking about whether they have a fan, whether they have a table, whether they have a chair and the cot and the bed. So there are many minimal things which a household is expected to have. Looking at all of these things, you can decide about the standard of living. So in case of your UNDP doesn't just directly get into the income variable. It is going to say that if you don't have access to the resources in terms of education, health, and standard of living, that's when I am going to call you as poor person, right? And when you see this, there are two words which is being given here. Though you want to assess like whether you have, whether you don't have. If you don't have, I call you as poor. If you have, I call you as non-poor. Like this, you will be keeping on assessing, and then you will be arriving at the total level of poverty. I'm going to give you a numerical example now. Assume that India, the surveyor, he went to 100 households, right? 20 households were identified as poor. How did we identify? Because they don't have the access to resources. So lack of access to resources, they didn't have good access to education or health or to the nutrition or to the standard of living. Now we have identified 20 households out of the 100 households as the poorer household. This 20 household will be called as this head count. Head count. You are counting the head and you are reporting that 20 people in India, they are in poverty, right? So that's one definition which you can see here. The other definition, what you can actually see in terms of the poverty is intensity of poverty. What do you mean by intensity of poverty? Right? We'll tell the intensity now. Assume that the first indicator we'll pick up in order to explain this, nutrition, right? One person should be having 2100 calories per day in order to be called as non-poor. Let us set one standard and then say that if you have consumed this, you are not poor. If you have not consumed this much minimal thing, you will be considered as poor, right? I'm going to draw a line now. This is 2100. There are lots of people in this 20 households who have consumed less. Okay. Okay, sorry, I got disconnected due to some problem in the computer. So what we are trying to tell is we were trying to talk about that intensity of the poverty. So in case of nutrition, we started saying how do we start defining the intensity. If you have 2100 calories as a minimum requirement you should be consuming in a day in order to call yourself as non-poor. And there are, I said already, like there are 20 households in India, say for example, they are not consuming this amount minimum. But the households can be anywhere like this. What do you mean like anywhere like this? They may be
அது கரெக்டா தான்.
okay. So we were discussing about intensity of poverty. So we were talking about 2100 as the minimum value, and we were explaining about the households which can be having different values. So all we want to say that to the expected level of the calories, if you are not consuming, now I will count 1, 2, 3, 4, and I will say that there are 4 people in poverty. That's a head count. That is this head count. We are going to do a second thing, which is how far are they down from the expected level of poverty, or the expected level, right? What is this expected level of calories, right? So you can see that somebody is consuming 1900 calories, somebody is consuming like around 700 calories, somebody is consuming 800 calories, somebody is consuming 1000 calories, but all of these people will be placed in poverty, but each one is having a different value. So we are going to see the intensity, the average intensity. How far are they away from the expected level, what we call as the poverty line? I hope you are all able to see the screen, right? I hope you are able to. Video is not visible. Can't see anything now. You're able to see the document. Are you able to see the screen now? திரும்பவும் கட் ஆயிடுச்சுப்பா.
என்ன மேடம் கனெக்ட்ல தான் இருக்கீங்க?
இப்ப கனெக்ட்ல தான் இருக்கு. ஆனா they are not answering. They are saying they are not able to see anything. Am I visible and audible? Students, somebody can reply. Am I visible and audible?
ஒரு சும்மா கொடுங்க. இப்ப கேளுங்க மேடம்.
Am I visible and audible? Students, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you see me?
மைக்ரோஃபோன் இதுதான் கொடுத்துருக்கோம். வாய்ஸ் அப்சர்வ் பண்ணிட்டு தான் இருக்கு.
நான் கேக்குதா இல்லையான்னு தெரியாம எப்படி பாங்க. என்ன கனெக்ட்? ஓ, உங்களோட போன். யாருமே ரிப்ளை பண்ணலையப்பா. Hmm? Am I visible and audible? Students, can you hear me? Okay. So we were talking about the intensity of poverty. So here we were trying to explain about the intensity by saying that you pick up a particular level, and then if you are lesser than the level, how far are you below this expected level is important for us. This is to understand like how poor are the people. One is to identify that they are poor. Second thing is to identify how poor are they. Why do we have to know how poor are they? It is essential because assume you become a district collector tomorrow, and you are being given with the agenda of alleviating poverty in your particular district on a specific mission basis. So in that case, first of all, you need to know like how many poorer people are there in your district. That is the head count. Second thing is you will be asking like how poor are they, how much poor are they like very below the expected level, or are they closer to it? So depending upon which you will be able to வரல. Am I visible and audible now? Yeah, okay. Okay. So I hope we were getting into the concept of the poverty intensity, and we missed on it. So we were trying to describe about the intensity of the poverty. So we had described intensity by picking up the line, drawing a particular line, and then we said like whoever is lesser than this line, they will become poorer. And we were trying to say that how far you are below that expected line, everybody could be differently positioned in that. Not able to do this annotate. கேட்கல கேட்குதா? So that's what we are going to call as the intensity of poverty. You have a standard and you are identifying people who are lesser than that, and you are identifying how much are they away from the required standard, right? And you are going to calculate this intensity, the average of this intensity, and present it as the intensity of the poverty. And how do you find out the poverty index? This intensity and the head count, you're going to multiply these two things, I into h. It is not only enough for me to identify how many people are poorer, it is also important for me to understand that how poor are they. So how many are poor multiplied by how poor are they, these two things will be giving you the multidimensional poverty index, right? So that is the summary of all the 5 different indicators. Right now I'll show you the UNDP's HDR so that you will understand whatever we have studied. You can see the levels of these indicators in the real situation. Inequality adjusted HDR is not, of course, it's a kind of negative index only. Yeah, just 1 minute. Please give me 2 minutes. I am just trying to. Multidimensional poverty index is also a negative index, of course. If you have more poorer, the percentage will be more. And I just want to go to page 300. Okay. Let me find the go to page 4. Page 300 போகணும்னு நினைக்கிறேன். எப்படி போகிறது?
அதை மவுஸ்ல ஸ்க்ரால் பண்ணுங்க.
ஸ்க்ரால் பண்ணியெல்லாம் போக முடியாது, ரொம்ப நேரம் ஆகும். இந்த கோ டு இந்த எடிட்ல இருக்கும், அதை காணும். இதுதான் பேஜ் நம்பரு. இப்படி போய் இனிப்பா போறது நானு. இங்க பாருங்க, இங்கதான் வருது அது.
இந்த மாஸ்க் செலக்ட் பண்ணுங்க மேடம். அந்த என்னோட கம்ப்யூட்டர் அந்த எடிட்ல அது வந்து பர்சன்டேஜ் இல்ல, அது அந்த ஹைலைட். ரொம்ப அழகா போக வேண்டியது. எங்கேயாவது கோ டு பேஜ் இருக்கா பாரு. இது என்னது? பேஜ் தம்ப்நெயில்ஸ். Yes. Okay, so this is 2019's HDR report. I'm trying to zoom it out. UNDP's HDR report. We are going in a descending order. People, please see the first category is called as very high human development. And you can see that the values are going to be between 0 to 1. And you can see Norway is on the top. This is essential. Somewhere you can quote, like when you're writing the main census also, which are all the very high developed countries. You can have a look at it. And you can also see like the life expectancy at birth, which is in the number of years. And this is where I told you, like you were all answering life expectancy to be the highest for Japan. You can see Japan is at the 19th rank. And it is life expectancy is 84.5. And is there a country more than that? You can see here Hong Kong 84.7. So which is why we said like there are other countries which are now performing slightly better than Japan. That's one of the data. The other thing is all about your education, expected years of schooling and mean years of schooling. You can see here like expected years and the mean years being represented in the years. And then the third, the major dimension is the gross national income per capita. You can see that it is represented in purchasing power parity dollar terms, right? And I am very sure you're all waiting to see where India is standing in the list of this ranking. So I'm just going to scroll through. You can actually have a look at the countries which are belonging to the very high human development. Anybody wants to tell a number where India is there? I will share this PDF after the thing. Class is over. Can you please somebody tell like where India's, which rank is India is expected? I still have not got. You're all in 120, 130, fine. You can have a look at the countries, very high human development: New Zealand, UK, Belgium, Japan, Austria, Luxembourg, Israel, Malta, Greece. You have heard so many stories about Greece getting into crisis, but still it is a very high human development country. You can see here UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Chile, okay, Seychelles, Malaysia. Now we are getting into the high human development, which is the second category. You can see here Costa Rica, Sri Lanka. Where is India? We can still find India. Thailand, Brazil, China, our biggest competitor, 85th rank. Still India has not come into the picture. Botswana, Jamaica, Fiji, Where is India? We can't find India yet. Uzbekistan, Indonesia, Egypt. Can you see that Egypt is ahead of us? Still, India has not come, right? So now comes the medium human development. And come on, you can look at the list: Iraq, Morocco, Marshall, Guyana. India is still not there. Finally, we have found India. Where is India? 129th rank, right? So this rank you may have to remember for the examination purpose as well as for writing in the mains exam. So 129th rank, I told you India is having a value something like around 0.647, right? Nicaragua, they are all better than India, but still we'll go look at the indicators value. 69.4 is where we stand in the life expectancy at birth. Expected years of schooling is 12.3, but average years of schooling is only 6.5 in India. And we have a per capita income which is actually lesser, right? So that's how the 4 different categories are there. Now I'll scroll it down and then complete the list. You can look at who are all behind us. That's not the way who actually we should look at, but still for some solace we can look at it. Bangladesh, Myanmar, Cambodia, Kenya. And one good news is like 152nd rank is Pakistan, so they are trailing behind us. You can be happy about it. Low human development, you can see most of the African countries are into it, and that's how we complete the list up to 189 countries. So that's what they have given. So I told you the values will be taken in order to divide. So this is how they have divided the human development groups. From which value to which value will be taken into that particular category is what we have seen as the quartile distribution. So that's what is given here. And then least developed countries and all is there, right? Index trends we don't want. We are moving on to the second indicator, which is inequality adjusted HDI. Yeah, this is a second indicator what we study. First, we will look at for Norway, which is on the top, and we can see how much value it has lost because of the inequality. Can you see that Norway had the topmost value as 0.954 and stood as the first rank, but it has lost its value to 0.889 because of the inequality differences. So overall, how much value difference has it come, and whether there is a change in the rank. So they have adjusted the inequality in life expectancy, in education, in income, everything. And then this Gini coefficient and all, after I teach you, I'll tell you. But as of now, we just have to see whether its rank position has changed. Actually, a difference from HDI rank, it is not very different from the HDI rank. But you can see there are lots of countries like Switzerland, Ireland, Germany, to their HDI rank, they are actually becoming lesser than that because they are losing value, right? So you can see that this value is getting converted into a lesser value because of the presence of the levels of inequality. And now we will go and see for India. I remember India as 129th rank, moderately developed country, medium developed country. You can see for India, we had 0.647 as the value, but the value has fallen down to 0.477. This is mainly because we have high levels of inequality inside the country. We have almost lost how much value, like uh, this 26.3 percentage or something we have lost. And but still the change in the ranking, or we have actually gained ranking by one. There are lots of statistical anomalies like this. Though we have lost in our value, we may be seeing better performing, mainly because somebody else has performed very bad. So that's how we have to understand these statistics. But as such, for India, it's not a very good news for us to look at the number, because it is falling down from 0.647 to 0.447 or 0.477, 0.477, right? So that's the inequality adjusted HDI. And in the report itself, you can see the mention of this word Atkinson. Are you able to see that? All these inequality adjustment is being done making use of the Atkinson inequality index, right? So they wouldn't have given the technical note. If you want to look at the technical note, you can actually go to the link which is given here. We are not getting into that much of details for the examination. That's your IHTI. When we come to the gender development index, gender development index is like looking at the human development index for men and women. So here you can see, I told you a way how you can calculate here. I would like to mention it again. It is not able to write. It's women by men. Okay. Last minute. So it's actually the women by men. So you can see here, oh, it has come, but it has come in white color. So I myself can't see it. So it is women by men. So I told you countries which are having lesser than value of 1 will be having men dominating the women. Whereas countries which are having more than value of 1 will be having women dominating men. And both of them equal, then the value should be equivalent to 1. You can see that, for example, in the first country, Norway, you can see that the life expectancy for female is more than the men. It will be a commoner pattern for across most of the countries. And you have the expected years of schooling, mean years of schooling, and gross national income. You can see that expected years of schooling for female is more, and the mean years of schooling is also more for women in these kinds of very highly developed country, which is unlike India. But their earning capability, men only are dominating over there, right? So this kind of a trend is there for the GDI. And let us go and see anywhere if there is a country which is having a value equivalent to 1, in which case men and women will be equivalent in all the 3 aspects. So let us have a look at it, or somewhere whether women are doing better than the men overall. So if you look at countries like Slovenia, can you see that it is 1.003, which means that women are doing better than men in these kind of countries. And you can also see Estonia, you can see Poland, you can see Lithuania, right? You can see Latvia, you can see Qatar, right? In these kind of situations, you can see that women are actually performing more than men. So somewhere closer to this 0.999 or 1 and all, women will be equally performing to men. So that is gender development index. I'm going to show you data of India. We are moving towards 129th rank. Right? Where is India? Yeah, we are closer to 0.829, right? Previous years and all, we used to have data lesser than that 0.8. We used to be in 0.7. So slightly there is an improvement when compared to previous years. And here you can see that in India, the life expectancy at birth for women is 70.7, whereas for men it is 68.2. And you can see expected years of schooling 12.9, 11.9, whereas mean years of schooling, it is very much lesser for women when compared with men. And similar will be the levels of income. So you can see like men are like 4 times earning than women, right? So that's the situation for India. So there is a gender development, very less development for women happening, right? And the fourth indicator, which is about the gender inequality index, you can see that I mentioned something like maternal mortality ratio should be like deaths per 1 lakh live births, which should be lesser than 100. But you can see in the very high human development countries, it is in single numbers. It is a very good situation for them. 5, 8 and all only is there. But you can look at the other indicators also. You can see that this adolescent birth rate, which is actually varying across the different very high developed countries. Share of seats in parliament, you can see in Norway it is around up to 41%, whereas in India it's not even like 10 to 12%. Some amount of secondary education, they are almost closer to 96% for the women. And the labor force participation is also almost equivalent to men, sometimes like very good, actually 62% and all. But in case of India, all these numbers are going to be very, very different. Other thing what I want you people to observe in this particular sheet is, there is this sheet is actually fully of very high human development. I want you to look at this MMR and the adolescent birth rate. This is very high human development category. You can see this is slowly like differing with the numbers, and you can see Chile is having 41 adolescent birth rate. They are all still, we are in the very high human development level. Can you see in Argentina this adolescent birth rate is very high, right? So actually this adolescent birth rate it is not a feature, or it is not a problem only for the less developed countries. Even the very high human development countries are having this problem. So that you need to understand. So that's one thing which I wanted to raise it to you in this table. Slowly we move on to the high development. The high development, you can see in Panama, it is 81.8 adolescent birth rate. So children are actually, girls are delivering at a very young age. And then we are moving to 129 rank where India is, medium development. You can see that our gender inequality index is 0.501. And you can see that we have a maternal death as 174, which is what I mentioned, which is very high, because to our levels of population, it should not be this high. Our adolescent birth rate is actually lesser, which is good, thanks to all the rules and regulations and the legislations, whatever we have brought. And the share of seats in parliament, you can see it is only 11.7% in India. And population with secondary education, it's like both men and women are equally like 48% or 46%. Labor force participation, men participation is very high with 84%, whereas women, they are very less, like around 50% of them only are participating. So that's the gender inequality index for India, right? So now we come to the last indicator, which is multidimensional. Here, there is no category called as very high human development. High human development countries will not come. They would have arranged just in an alphabetical order. You can see that, because poverty is a major issue only in certain countries. And you can see that according to this multidimensional poverty, where is India, you can very easily go and find it out in the alphabetical order. They have a different data. I'll show you first the column headings and how to understand the particular table. uh, they are giving you the head count and then the intensity, and then we are giving the head count and the intensity. We need three dimensions for it to be calculated. One is that health, that nutrition, and the child mortality. Education, which is like whether your child is enrolled, or the years of schooling. And third thing is about the assets and the water, cooking fuel, electricity access, sanitation access, all those things put together into this. So depending upon that, these three indicators combining together, two things we saw. Upon depending upon these things, how many people are falling into poverty, which is the head count, and how far are they deprived of this particular facility. So that's the intensity of the deprivation. So based upon this thing, you can say that multidimensional poverty, there is like 27.2, or uh, this they have given an absolute number, but at least you can say, like in terms of percentage, 55.9% of Afghanistan people are in poverty, like that. That's how you have to perceive this data. When you go in this kind of a similar way and then look at India, I'm just looking at the percentage according to the multidimensional poverty. You can come and see that in India, you have 27.9 percentage of Indians being under poverty, and they have given the absolute number over here. And this is a slightly backdated data, 2015-16 only we have. So this is what is the current status of poverty in India according to UNDP, right? So these are the different data, so corresponding to the indicators what we have studied from the human development report. In the next class, we will continue with the other indicators. I have to tell you about global hunger index. Then there are indicators like physical quality of life index, misery index, technology achievement index. A few more indicators are there for us to study. Once we are done with that, finally we will be studying about the concept of income inequality, and we'll study Lorentz curve and the Gini index. So next class we will be continuing with the economic growth and developmental indicators and completing the concept up to the level of inequality. Right? So that we finish the class now, and then if there are doubts, of course, you can message. Intensity of poverty is only to tell that how far you are falling below the level of the required level. If you should have studied 12 years of schooling, if you have studied only 6 years of schooling, there is a lack of 6 years. So that is, one person could have studied only for 6 years, one person studied only for 2 years. How far are you away from the required thing is the intensity of deprivation, or we call it as intensity of poverty, right? Yes, each year the UNDP will be releasing this report. Labor force participation is basically to say like how many people are in working employment, right? UN will be releasing this report. They will be saying 2019 report, but the data will be corresponding to 2018, or they may be even referring to earlier data. They can even, we will send this report in the Telegram group. You start referring from page number 300. That's where the appendix, the data is all there. You can have a complete perspective of the different indicators across the different countries in the world, right? Class PDF, yeah, last class PDF. Headcount ratio is to count how many number of people are in poverty, right? I mean, there are questions and let them type and then send it to me. So please type the questions and send if it is required. If you have any doubts, I will reply back to it. We will again meet in the next class and then complete the topic on growth and development. And as I told you, I have given the mail ID also. Please write to me. I will reply back to it. According to